Alrighty guys, this is going to be our stage 2 of FSA prep. I'm basically going to go over to what was today's lesson, today being Monday. Okay, I'm going to go over it, make sure you guys understand it, and give you guys a reference that you can look back on before the test on Tuesday. Still dropping my marker. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is maintaining our focus and consistency in our essay. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, we're going to talk about time management, patience, how to make sure you finish your essay within the given time limit. And number 3, we're going to talk about how to deal with bad prompts. They happen so much, so often. How do we deal with them when we see them, and how do we make sure that we finish out the essay? Okay? All right. So, first things first is maintaining focus. Put that down here. Now, there's 3 major ways that we do this. First of all, we have to identify what maintaining focus means, okay? Essentially, what maintaining focus means is you are making sure your thesis, your controlling idea, your argument, whatever you want to call it, okay? The main idea of your essay continues all the way through, from your introduction through every single body paragraph and ending in your conclusion. You want to make sure that consistent controlling idea doesn't stop and that you always are talking about it, okay? You don't want to talk about anything else. Now, a couple tips for that. I find a lot of people tend to get distracted and they switch to a different topic halfway through their essay. This will help stop that. First things first, okay? Your first is going to be to reference back to the thesis in every major body paragraph, okay? And I'll say once per paragraph. And this is a paragraph symbol, by the way, if you've never seen one. Okay? So referencing back once per paragraph, essentially what that means is you can do this at any point in a body paragraph, but make sure you have at least one reference back to your thesis. You can copy your thesis down if you really, really want to, or if you have issues with that, with restating your thesis, you can copy it down again in a new way. But what I like to do is one of 2 things. Either I reference it in the opening sentence of every body paragraph, right? For instance, let's say we're writing an essay on masks, okay? On why we should wear masks. My thesis might be something like, we should wear masks. Easy as that, right? Make sure you guys can see it. Yes. Okay, we should wear masks. Then I might have a body paragraph about fashion, right? I might have a body paragraph about privacy. And then I might have one about safety. Okay? Hypothetically speaking. What I can then do to make sure I reference back to the thesis, okay? I could start every body paragraph, in theory, like, one reason we should wear masks is because of fashion. Or one reason we should wear masks is because it creates a fashionable accessory. I could say one reason we should wear masks is because it helps promote and increase individual privacy. One last reason why we should be wearing masks during the COVID-19 pandemic is because of safety, right? And then you can go to explain it in more detail after that, and that is your body paragraphs right there, okay? That's one reason that we reference back to the thesis. And that's one way we can reference back to the thesis. Now, if you are wanting to challenge yourself a little bit, you can integrate that reference back to the thesis, not just in the first sentence, but do it a little bit later on, okay? After you use a piece of evidence, use that to go back to your thesis. One piece of evidence could be for your safety with those masks, and your body paragraph about safety might reference both the influenza epidemic of the late 1910s and compare that to COVID-19 now, about how the same mask protocol was enforced and how it affected the transmission of the virus in both cases, right? You could say that. And then you could say, as, in 1918, the influenza epidemic was at its height. However, with increased uses of an increase in mandatory use of masks in public, we decreased the level of influenza patients and overall saved lives. The same then applies to today, and this is why we should wear masks during the pandemic, right? Referencing back to that thesis right at the end there, okay? That would be a really good way to include evidence and make sure you have your elaboration at the same time. Your elaboration is your explanation of that evidence, okay? So referencing back to the thesis, absolutely your number one way to maintain your focus. All right, number 2. Your second way to maintain your focus is going to be making an outline. I kind of already did one, but an outline is probably one of the most useful things you can do at this stage. One of the most useful things you can do, period, when writing an essay, especially for a timed writing like this one, okay, like the FSA. So, making an outline, they do not have to be complicated. They never did, okay? One of the worst things that I ever had was a teacher that would make me do one of these numbers, right? You put your thesis in the middle in a box or something, and then you have to do a line with a circle, a line with a circle, and a line with a circle, right, as your main body 1, 2, and 3, right? I hated that. And then she would have us do an introduction down here, right, and then a conclusion down here. I hated it, okay? It was awful. It never helped me really see how I was writing and what I was putting into my essay. However, you don't have to put all of these things. You have people that say your outlines have to be the entire, intro sentence to every body paragraph. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Some people, that helps a lot, and I encourage you to do that if that is what works best for you. But if you feel like, you're gonna pass out every time you go to do one of those essays or essay outlines, make it simple. Put your thesis in a couple words, right? We should wear masks. Done. Now, obviously, when you put your thesis into your introduction, it's going to be longer than that, right? As a society, we should be wearing masks in order to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially when in public. That would be a much bigger form of that same thesis, but notice it says the same thing. We should be wearing masks, okay? That's 4 words. You don't have to put a lot to remind yourself of what your thesis is. Second of all, a couple words do fine, right? We can use the same outline as before. Fashion, privacy, and safety. Now, how does this help you maintain focus? What I encourage you to do is write a small outline like this. Something that's not super overwhelming, something that's not super complicated, and something that you can put on the top of your paper or on your planning sheet or something like that you're always able to see. Something you're able to digest in just a couple seconds. This is 7 words. Not very difficult to read at all, right? But you read it through and you say, okay, I know exactly what the entire scope of this essay is going to be. I know exactly where I'm going to be going with it. I know how I'm going to develop it. I know what I'm going to put into this essay just from reading these 7 words. Because I can conceptualize this. For you, it's going to be whatever your main ideas are, okay? You just put them down. Write them down so that you can remember how to bring them back to your thesis. Notice how close this thesis is. It's not a super drawn out, gigantic outline. Because you can instantly go fashion, back to the thesis, privacy, back to the thesis, safety, back to the thesis. And every time you remind yourself of, oh, what was I going to talk about next? Oh, privacy, and I remember that my thesis is there, okay? There are other reasons you should use an outline, so I'm going to keep this up, okay, just to keep talking about it. We'll keep using this one example of wearing masks because it's a very simple and easy essay topic. Okay, now the last way to maintain your focus and keep your topic consistency going is reread what you write, okay? Read it through again. Make sure that you proofread yourself. I know most people listening would rather die than reread their essay that they just wrote, okay? It's really common. I was in the same boat when I was a kid. I never liked to reread anything I ever wrote. I hated it. I was like, I just wrote it, I know what I wrote, I don't need to reread it. However, I always had a problem with focus and consistency. I always had a problem with making multiple points and never settling on one. So, this is how I fixed it, okay? And I'll replace my tagline here, okay? Proofreading is huge. But don't just read it through, because our brains are fallible, right? Our brains like to have what's called a confirmation bias. We like to see things that we like, and we like to believe that we're right about everything that we do. So, don't just read it normally in your head, okay? Read what you wrote by mouthing it. You're going to be in a test environment, so obviously you're not going to be able to say what you want to say out loud, okay? Naturally, that's not going to work. However, what you can do is mouth the words to yourself. You'll probably have a mask on if you're doing it in person. If you're one of my online students, I believe the plan is still to have it proctored remotely, but you can still mouth it to yourself, okay? You can still talk to yourself and make sure that what you said makes sense. Act as if you're giving a speech. Go through it piece by piece and say it, quote unquote, out loud. In this case, it's not out loud, obviously, but imagine you're giving it to a speech of people. If there's a spot you're embarrassed by, stop and fix it. If there's a spot that sounds a little clunky, where your grammar is a little bit off, you can stop and fix it. More specifically, look at your thesis for every single paragraph. Read your thesis and then read a paragraph. Read your thesis, read a paragraph. Read your thesis, read a paragraph. If you notice that one of your thesis or one of your paragraphs doesn't fully fit your thesis after you're done, you have two options. You can either change the paragraph, which takes a really long time and takes a lot of effort, or you can just change your thesis. Make sure your thesis matches all three. If you can change your thesis to match all three, you're all set, right? You're consistent, you're golden. That's all you need, okay? Remember, you're doing this on the computer. You can type it up. You can erase things, you can go back, you can highlight, you can, replace things as much as you need to. Remember, you can use that. It's your tool. All right. So that's proofreading. Those are the 3 ways to maintain your topic. Okay? Awesome. So that's maintaining your topic. Next, our next topic is how do you finish an essay in a given time period? Okay, in this case, we call this time management. Make sure I write this with plenty of space. Time management is a little trickier, okay? So I've collected a bunch of responses that you guys said during class today, and I'm gonna go through them one by one. So maintaining your time and making sure that you have your time management down pat is what separates people that finish their essays from people that don't, okay? There's a lot of ways to do that. There's a lot of ways to make sure that you are using your time wisely. So I'm gonna go through them one by one, all right? The first one, if you are the kind of person that likes things to be concrete, you like to have a plan, you like to go into it with a really good idea of what you want to talk about, and you have a really good idea of what you're going to go over, one way to do that is by making an outline first. You'll notice this outline keeps coming through every single time we talk about a new topic. Okay? It comes up a lot because it's gonna be useful a lot. So go in with an outline. An outline will help you with your time management because you know what you've done and what you still have to do, right? Let's say we have our original thesis here. Okay? We should wear masks, right? Our original thesis. And we have our ideas of fashion, we have privacy, and we have safety. Okay? So if we have our original outline here, and say we are currently on privacy, we know we've spent 45 out of the 120 minutes, we know we're almost halfway through the essay, then we know if we just have one paragraph and the conclusion left to go, we know we're in good shape. We also know that if we've spent, you have 120 minutes. If we've spent 90 minutes and we're still on paragraph number 1, we know we have somewhere to go. We know shorten this, make these longer, and we know we have to speed up, right? So you hit a bit of a metric on where you need to go next, okay? So that's number 1. The second idea for making sure that your time management is solid is you can make yourself a schedule. Remember, you have 120 minutes, right? Total. Well, if you divide that by 5, you'll find out 24 minutes per essay, or per paragraph. So 24 minutes per paragraph, if you're the kind that likes to put a concrete time to yourself, that's one way to do it. You'll have 24 minutes for every single body paragraph, or every single paragraph that you do. 24 minutes to plan and write your introduction, 24 minutes to write your first body paragraph, 24 minutes for your second and third, and finally 24 minutes for your conclusion. If you're that kind of person, you can go through, say we start at 7:30 in the morning, right? Or say 8 a.m., that'll be easier to time. Say we start at 8 o'clock a.m., right? You know that 8:24, you should have your intro done. You know that by 8:48, you should have your first body paragraph done. Okay? And you can go on and add time from there. Granted, you have to do a little bit of math, but you guys are in 10th grade, you should be fine. Okay? You do math all the time. So that's another example. If you are one of those people and you say, I think that sounds like a good idea for me, I think that'll really help me, go for it. 24 minutes is the magic number, and if you forget that number, watch this video again. All right? Okay, so that's another one. Let's go through. We have a couple small ones, right? First of all, I would encourage you not to stop writing in the middle of a paragraph. If you're mid-paragraph, keep writing until you're done. Don't let anything stop you, okay? Just make sure you write all the way through the paragraph, finish the idea, and then you come to one of the other most useful tips, and that is don't be afraid to take a break. Now, this sounds counterintuitive. It sounds wrong, right? I'm working on time management. Why the heck am I taking a break? Your brain needs rest. Your brain needs a little bit of help sometimes. This is a very stressful environment. I totally feel you, okay? I had to do this. It was, even though I knew I was going to do okay, it was still really, really stressful to sit there and have to, make sure that I do this one essay well, because if I don't graduate, right? That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. So if you need time, take 5 minutes, okay? It's not difficult. Take 5 minutes, time yourself, make sure you watch the clock for that, and then recollect your thoughts, focus back on the prompt, focus back on your thesis statement that you've already written, focus back on your outline, and then get back into it, okay? If you need to, reread the things you just read. See if you can go in a new direction with it. That will absolutely help, and it'll stop anxiety and other problems from rising up. One more thing. Manage your breathing, okay? It sounds kind of new agey and a little spooky, but managing your breathing absolutely helps control your heart rate, which controls your adrenaline level, which controls your mood, which controls your anxiety. It helps, okay? It's not going to fix the problem entirely, but it will help you calm down a little bit easier, okay? Breathe slowly, breathe in for 10, out for 10, in for 12, out for 12, in for 15, out for 15. Go as far as you can. If you can go all the way to breathing in for 20 seconds and out for 20 seconds, your heart rate will slow down, okay? You force yourself to calm down. You force yourself to relax. When you're relaxed is when most people are most productive, okay? Awesome. Let me see, anything else we need to talk about? Yeah, there's only 2 more things. First of all, make sure when you're doing your time management, make sure that every single paragraph is the same length, or at least every body paragraph is the same length. Your introduction and conclusion could be shorter. but make sure your body paragraphs are the same. Make sure they're consistent. That'll help. And one last thing, chunk the essay. This kind of goes into what we just talked about with continuing to do an idea until you're done with it. But if you chunk an essay, what that means is you take it piece by piece. If you think that you're going to be overwhelmed by writing it all in one go, write the introduction, then take a small break, 2 minutes or so. Then do the first body paragraph, then take a break, then do the next one, then take a break. You do not have to frantically scribble, or in this case, frantically type until the bell rings. You have 2 hours to do it, and also remember the last thing for time management, okay? It's not entirely set in stone whether or not this is going to be the case, but for a lot of this, the script does say for the FSA that if you need extra time, if you need to talk to your proctor about extra time, do so. It's very likely they'll give you a little bit, not guaranteed though. So if you're one of the people that get extra time, take advantage of it. If you're not, if you don't have that accommodation, use your time wisely. You have 2 hours. That's over twice as long as we've given in class, so you should be well and truly prepared. Okay? All right. Now, last but not least, we move on to bad prompts. This is the most difficult thing to get past when writing one of these FSA essays. Okay? The FSA is notorious for this. Okay? It's renowned for its ability to take what could be an interesting prompt and then absolutely crush it and ruin it. Right? Nobody likes to write these bad prompts. Nobody likes to write about clothing manufacturing. But that was a past given essay to students in 2018. Okay? Nobody likes it, but it's what you have to deal with. Okay? Nobody likes broad prompts. Nobody likes really specific prompts. We don't like things that we can't invest ourselves in, that we can't emotionally, respond to. So, how do we deal with it? I've got a couple answers. First of all, is relatability. Okay? Relatability is how well you resonate with the prompt. How well you say, I can get emotionally invested in this. I know that I have something to say about this issue. Okay? A lot of time the FSA tries to do this, but they think they're being relatable, but the people that write it are much, much older, and it does not usually work the way they think it will. Okay? Be aware of that. Second of all, with relatability is, sorry, I blanked out for a second. I need to work on my time management. Relatability helps you to get something out of a really bad prompt. Say it's about clothing, right? That timed essay number 3 that we did. If you have clothing and you're talking about relatability, you wear clothing, don't you? Okay. Try to find something you can resonate with, something you can emotionally connect with, something that you can be passionate about. If you're talking about industry, right? Think about how the convenience of going to the store and buying your own clothes. That did not exist prior to that, advancement. So, lead to something that you actually care about. Go from something you don't and try to move it into something that you do care about. If you're talking about, freedom versus safety, that was another essay that we did, okay? A way to make that relatable, talk about how freedom has affected you, okay? Use yourself as a personal example if it's not a synthesis essay. If it's a synthesis essay, it doesn't matter what you think, but it matters what the articles say, what the articles think. And then it doesn't matter if you can relate. If for a synthesis essay, it doesn't really matter if you can relate. Relatability kind of goes out the window. So that brings us to the next topic. If you can't relate to it and you think it's boring, right? What do you do now? The way that I like to do it, sarcasm. Now, it sounds like I'm joking. I'm not. Sarcasm absolutely works. You guys are teenagers. You're petty. Me too. Okay? Lean into it. Allow yourself to be petty. Okay? When you're reading a prompt like that and you say, this is the worst prompt I've ever seen, be sarcastic about it. Okay? Say I'm talking about clothing styles, right? I really, don't give a hill of beans over clothing styles and manufacturing. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, these clothing styles were so instrumental in really changing the world for the better, right? I go completely serious about it. I go and give way too much information. I give too much evidence and elaboration. I go ham on this essay, proving how idiotic it is. To me, that's what it proves. However, the readers of this essay, they're not going to get your sarcasm. They're just going to read it as a well-researched, well-thought-out essay. It actually works. I've done this before. I promise it works. Okay? I once wrote an essay for the 6th grade FCAT Writes. I don't know if you guys have taken the FCAT or not, but I took the FCAT Writes. Okay? My essay for that had to do with the person that you wanted most to be put on the $20 bill. We all took one look at it and audibly groaned. You could hear the entire 8th grade, or was it 6th grade? I think it was 6th grade, groaning at this prompt. We hated it. It was the worst. So, you know what I did? I said Thomas Edison was the best person to get the $20 bill. I do not believe that. He was a kind of a piece of crap. He did a lot of horrible things. But I talked about his influence and how he took other people's ideas and used them for his own. And I was really sarcastic about it. But I think that the reader did not know history. And therefore, I got a 6 out of 6 on it. Because they thought I was being serious, they thought I was being in earnest, and they said that my support was really good. Okay, now granted, that's a different test than what you're doing. It's likely not going to be that personal for you guys. However, sarcasm can still work. Okay? Lean into it as hard as you can. It will probably, likely, hopefully, pay off. Okay. Now the other ideas are not quite as exciting, but we can go through some of them. We have relatability. We have petty sarcasm. Once again, we go back to Old Faithful, the outline. Okay? An outline will help you with a bad prompt. It will help you with your time management. And finally, it helps you with maintaining your focus and topic consistency. It helps you with everything. Outlines are great, okay? If you are worried about not being able to find enough things to say, try an outline first. I don't want to write an essay about masks, but if I write a thesis about masks saying that we should wear them, right? I get that out of the way. And then I can, come up off the top of my head 3 reasons to support it. That'll work. As long as you have your 3 reasons, as long as you have 3 things to talk about, or even, heck, you can do 2 things. You can shorten your essay to 4 paragraphs. As long as they're good, well-rounded paragraphs, they will totally work, okay? If you can come up with evidence, even if it's not the best evidence that you can think of, if you can defend it well and really argue for how it proves your thesis, you're in good shape. All right? Outlines are great. Use them. All right? Another one is to play devil's advocate. That means to argue something that you disagree with. You'll find this a lot with argumentative papers. You don't agree with either side, so you play devil's advocate. Okay? So an advocate is someone who argues for someone. An advocate is someone who goes to bat for you. An advocate is someone who will fight for you, right? You're fighting for the devil. You're fighting for the person who is against you. If I don't agree with either side of an issue, say they ask me what my favorite baseball team is, I hate all baseball. I don't. But hypothetically, let's say that I did. I would then argue about why the Red Sox are the best, and I would just pull things out of my, out of thin air. You can do that. You do not have to believe what you're writing. You do not have to believe that Thomas Edison is the best choice for the $20 bill. You can put whatever you need to. As long as you put it in, you defend it with evidence, you're fine, okay? Make it up. If you don't believe it, don't worry about it. No one's going to be, searching your social media and stalking you to find out whether or not you believed in what you wrote on the 10th grade FSA writing. They do not care, okay? All right? And last but not least is you use specificity to your advantage. Now, what does that mean? Specificity is being specific, being really, really specific about something. A lot of times the FSA writing prompts will be very, very broad. They will ask you a really gigantic question that has a million answers to it, and they ask you to write an essay about it, right? That freedom versus safety idea, one of those, okay? Freedom versus safety, you'll notice that most of the people in the class wrote about government. That's not what the essay was about. The essay is about freedom and safety, period. They would rather be free than be safe, or safe than free, whatever the quote was, okay? You do not have to choose just a government issue. You do not have to be, super broad and talk about, oh, well, if you're safe but you're not free, then you're not going to do what you might want to do. That's such a broad way of explaining it. So go super specific. Use a very specific example to prove a broader point. So I'll go with the freedom versus safety issue, whether you have to choose whether you'd rather be free or rather be safe. I might say something like, imagine you are walking up to your crush, okay? Your crush is standing right in front of you. You have a choice. You can either choose freedom, talk to the person, tell them how you feel, and see if it works out. Or you can remain safe, stay exactly as you are without, a special someone, and you're just gonna have to live your life that way, forever alone, right? That would be an argument towards freedom. You could say freedom is very much worth the risk, and this is why. And then you can explain how that generally ties to the rest of someone's life, how that ties to freedom in general, instead of just talking about your crush, right? You can use a small example to prove a bigger one. You could also use an example like government, right? Talking about freedom versus safety, you could talk about, I think a lot of people talked about immigration, about people choosing freedom, choosing to go to America instead of staying in their home countries, right? Where it was safe because they wanted a better life for themselves and their families. That's an example. It's a really specific example, but it helps prove a much broader issue. Does that make sense? Okay. So basically, I believe that's it. I hope that helped. I'll be making more of these, of course. I'm making them out of order. This is the first one I've made. So I'll be posting this onto YouTube as soon as I can. I'll be making sure to record the other stages. We have 5 of them. I will likely see if I can record other ones. If there's any other issues you want to have addressed, talk to me in class. Tell me, hey, can you make a video on XYZ topic? I most likely can. Okay, I have a lot of free time this week. So just let me know. In that case, if this is the last video you watch before the FSA, good luck.